It doesn't matter what the inflation rate is, 2% is still theft. I think the way that the system is designed, it's intentionally designed to keep people poor. Everything is better with Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is that solution. I think Bitcoin is that escape.
Welcome to the Bitcoin RX podcast. This is your host, Nurse Ralph. Today I got with me Rajat, who's been a CFA for about 10 years, right?
So I have had my CFA for about 5 years, but I was working in finance for about 10 years.
Nice. All right. He's going to help me give you your weekly dose of orange pill so you don't die from Fiat disease. Rajat, man, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing well.
Before we start talking about Bitcoin, man, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your let's say your journey before Bitcoin?
Yeah, I was working in finance for a while. I came across Bitcoin around 2021.
Mhm.
Before that, completely different person. After that, completely different person. Bitcoin completely changed my life. It completely changed who I am as a person, and it's made me do a little bit more research on really everything.
When you say like Bitcoin completely changed your mind, like you've been like in finance for, like you said, like finance now for 10 years now. Do you think like in my head I'm thinking, man, the financial system like m- basically like failed us in a way, like our education system failed us. Like if guys like you who went to school for that don't understand money, like I don't know, like do you think like it's like, I don't know, there's no hope for like the rest of the regular guys like me and you unless we find our way to Bitcoin? Like is it the only solution now, you think?
I wouldn't say there's no hope. I would say that there definitely is hope. I think you could definitely, and any, I mean, regular people. You're a nurse,
Yep.
so you work as a nurse. What my wife is a nurse as well, so similar situation, right? But I think the way that the system is designed, it's intentionally designed to keep people poor. It's intentionally designed. Like let's say you go to work, you work with some doctors. I guarantee you that a lot of the doctors that you work with have no idea what they're doing with their money. They're buying real estate because they were told to. They have a financial manager who's taking 1, 2, 3% of their portfolio every single year. They have no idea what's going on with the market, and they're probably keeping a lot more of their savings in a checking account than they should. I think that's just the idea. So I do one-on-one meetings with people where I do paid one-on-one meetings with people. People come to me with their questions. They ask me whatever they want to. They ask me for my advice on, let's say, certain topics. They would say, "Oh, I want to sell my real estate, or I want to buy Bitcoin. I have this real estate," and I tell them what I would personally do. I don't tell them this is what you should do. I tell them what I would personally do based on the information that they give me about themselves. I've noticed that a lot of doctors, a lot of healthcare workers, they're such hard workers, but they don't have anything saved because their savings are just dying. They spend so long in school. They go to school for what, like 15 years, something,
Yeah, feels like
right?
forever. Yeah.
And then they have all this debt, three, 400, $500,000 worth of debt. If they get through that dip, if they get through that difficult part, of course, then they come out with a much better result than the average person. But a lot of them don't. I've spoken to people who got their who went to law school, who didn't get their law degree, they didn't get licensed to be a lawyer, and they still have the debt, but they're not in the career. So back to the point we were making. I think a lot of people who are working very hard don't have that financial knowledge that tells them to buy assets. They're just holding on to cash. That's the biggest problem here. And it feels like it's intentional, to be honest. If I'm being honest with you, I think it feels like it's intentional because if people didn't want to hold the fiat currency, then there would be no value to the currency. The currency is only valuable because people want it. If there's demand for it, then it's valuable. If there's no demand, then there's no value. There has been an effort to get people to believe that the currency is money and to save in that currency, and they've been doing that for a while. People have been doing that for a very long time, and it hasn't really worked out for them. I think Bitcoin is that solution. I think Bitcoin is that escape.
I agree. Oh, what type of nurse is your wife actually?
She's an ICU nurse.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, working hard. Is she orange pilled as well, or is she just
She's getting
doing what you tell her?
Yeah, she's getting there. She's getting there.
She's good, yeah.
I think she'll get there.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. My wife is a nurse as well, and I'm like, I think I kind of like forced it onto her because it's like I'm like, hey, listen, we are not gonna make it if we don't do that. If we don't, save in Bitcoin. And I think she's
Yeah.
starting to get it now. But I feel that. And as far as like your journey, when you transition over to Bitcoin and started making your YouTube channel, have you noticed any of like your colleagues do the same, or or has it been just you basically?
No, I left my job. I don't work in finance anymore. I worked in finance. I left my job in 2021. It was difficult at first, of course, it was very difficult, but over time, I've been building up my income, but I left that job 4 years ago. I actually discovered Bitcoin after I think I discovered Bitcoin after I left the job. So, my colleagues had didn't even, they I don't actually, one of my colleagues was he did point out Bitcoin to me in, I think it was in 2020, either 2020, I don't remember the exact dates, but one of my colleagues did point it out to me. He's orange pilled, but the other ones are not. So I discovered Bitcoin after. He pointed it out to me. I kind of started studying, but I only started buying in about 2022.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep. What was your original goal? Like, because usually I feel like people they find Bitcoin first and then they make the switch over to like doing their own thing. But like, what was your original goal before Bitcoin?
S- So for me, it was so I used to post about personal finance on Instagram. I have a massive following on Instagram. I stopped posting though. I just feel like I wasn't getting the return that I wanted. And then I started posting on Twitter. Again, personal finance. So before Bitcoin, I was more like the traditional finance route. So I was talking to people about mortgages, dividends, all that stuff. I had some pretty in-depth threads. If you go through my highlights, I think you'll find a couple of them. But over time, I kind of figured out that maybe Bitcoin is a better savings account. Bitcoin is a better way to save. There's less due diligence required. There's less risk. There's less work. Everything is better with Bitcoin. So I started posting about Bitcoin. I figured out Bitcoin. I think it was in August. So until August 2023, I believe that was when it was. I hadn't been fully orange pilled, I'd say. And then after that, it's just been straight only Bitcoin. Before that, it was a variety. So I used to talk about stocks, real estate, bonds, gold, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's just Bitcoin,
Yeah.
100% Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think it was like I think it was the same thing for me. I had a previous channel where I was like, I was talking about other stuff, and then now I'm like, oh wow, this is it. There's no other way to do it. Even when I first started investing, I think I had like, it's like I was following some guy that was like always have 50% in the S&P 500 and a few individual stocks, and then have maybe 5% in crypto. And then now I'm like, yeah, nah, that's not doing that anymore.
Yeah, that was
Now
me at a point.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I was buying a lot of the S&P 500, so VOO,
Yo, yeah. Yeah, all of that. Yeah. Um, Let me ask you a question about some juicy stuff. Actually, talking about fiat currency now. So I have a lot of immigrants that so what they do is they come to America, they work their butt off, and they try to whenever it's time, they try to go back to their country to retire, right? And it sounds like a great idea because when they go back home, their currency is weaker than the US dollar, so they get to live a more like frugal life. But can you explain to like my small immigrant audience why saving in fiat currency, although it sounds like a great idea, why is saving in the fiat currency for retirement not the best idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have actually have a little bit of a presentation for this that I made
Ooh,
before.
okay.
Keep in mind that this, of course, to just your audience, we hadn't prepared for this. I already had
Yep.
this available, so
Yep.
let me just share that.
All
But I
right.
think one of the main things here is that most people don't understand that fiat currencies are literally designed to destroy your wealth. You're going
Hmm.
to be told all these different narratives that, oh, fiat currencies are not good. We should increase the money supply. It doesn't cause inflation. But think about it. This was posted in December of 2016. Rapid money supply growth does not cause inflation. Of course, this is one economist, but you know for a fact that there are others who think the exact same way. They
Yep.
think that, we should be increasing the money supply. They think that we should be decreasing interest rates to zero. But let's look at what exactly happens here with an increasing money supply. So if you have, let's say, a certain percentage of the amount of money in the economy, you have 5% of it. So in this case, 5% of that total money supply is $5. You have $5. The total money supply is $100. So you have $5 out of $100, meaning you have 5%. What happens if your government suddenly increases the money supply to $200? You still have $5. You still have this $5 chunk here, but now the total chunk, the total pool, of money is $200. So you now have $5 out of $200. So you had $5 out of $100. Now you have $5 out of $200. So you have
Yep.
half the percentage of the total supply. And people might think, oh, I still have $5 though. That's all that matters. No, that's not even close to accurate. So when you had $5, you could have bought a full basket of groceries. But when you have $5 in the $200 money supply economy, you can now only buy half a basket of groceries because there's more money. The raw material costs have gone up. The cost of labor has gone up. The cost of everything, rent has gone up. The price of mortgages has gone up. So everything has gone up in price. So your grocery store is going to charge you more money because they need to. That's it. They need
Hmm.
to. And this is, of course, it of course isn't just applied to food. It applies to cars. You can
Yep.
no longer buy the cars that you used to buy. You might not even be able to buy a car anymore, right? So you might have gone from being able to afford a certain car to another car to another car, and you just keep downgrading and downgrading until you can't afford anything. Same thing with housing. So housing also gets more expensive if you own fiat currencies. So the price of housing is going to keep going up because more and more fiat currencies can be created and added to the economy. You can keep increasing the money supply. The price of housing will keep rising literally forever. So this is one of the issues here. The issue here is that people are saving in a currency that more of anyone can governments can create more of, wealthy people can borrow against their houses and they can create more of. So this
Hmm.
pool, the green, keeps growing and growing and growing until your blue is worth nearly nothing. So, based on this, just from this move, you have lost 50% of your purchasing power. Now, if this happens again, if it goes from 200 to 400, you lost another 50%. Then it goes from 400 to 800, you lost another 50%. So, you've lost 50%, you can lose another 50%. The US dollar has lost 99% of its value. Your currency that you've saved has lost 99% of its value. It'll lose another 99% because the pool can keep increasing. And that's the most important thing here. So
Hmm.
back to the question here, you were asking how immigrants are affected by this. Of course, the cost of living goes up. But the second part of this presentation is with Bitcoin. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong presentation. But with Bitcoin, the
Hmm.
money supply can't go up.
Yep.
That's the main point. With Bitcoin, the money supply can't go up while the supply of everything else can go up. So instead of having only half, this of course this picture doesn't work here, but instead of having half a basket of goods, you'll have more baskets of goods because if you hold Bitcoin, you have a finite supply good while the supply of everything else can increase. So the price of housing will decrease in terms of Bitcoin because more and more houses can be built, but more Bitcoin can't be created and added to the economy. So over time, if you save in fiat, your cost of living is going to go up forever. On the other hand, if you save in Bitcoin, your cost of living is going to decrease forever.
Hmm. Yep, yep, yep. What so a lot of people have been I saw your recent video about explaining the CPI number and how it's not real. I like that video. A lot of people have been believing that 2 to 3%, and they still do, of course. What do you think is the real rate of inflation? Like, is it how do they even because I think people don't understand the problem yet. Like, how do they even know what it is? Like, where do they look for that?
So
Like, is that? Mhm.
I think Jeff Booth did a really great job in talking about this. If your audience is a fan of Jeff Booth's, go read his book. He was great. I think he kind of gave me that paradigm shift as well. So before I read his content, before I listened to his podcast, I was a believer of the 2%, 3% inflation. He was one of the people that really pushed me towards the right direction, and he was one of the earlier people that I listened to. So his thought is that over time, the world is supposed to become deflationary. It's supposed to be deflationary. So prices of things are supposed to go down because we get better at making things. More people get specialized in making certain things. Let's say more people can learn, more people know how to program on C plus plus or Python or whatever coding system today than yesterday, than the day before, than the day before that. So the cost of code should be decreasing. And then let's say specialization for producing oil. More people know how to produce oil today than they did yesterday or the day before, than the day before. Same thing with making cars, working with Tesla, working with building houses, working with like Remington. Remington's a housing company in our area. So more and more people are building these skills, but the thing is that the cost of everything is still going up. Why is that? It's because more and more money is chasing the same number of goods. So with Bitcoin, what happens is since there's a finite supply of money and there's an infinite supply of everything else can be created, more of it can be created and added to the economy. With Bitcoin, the price of everything decreases. So the real rate of inflation, you were asking the real rate of inflation, I think it should be negative 5%, so deflationary, because this is based on 2% expected inflation. And then we have the money supply is increasing by 7, 8%, something like that. Um, I think the cost of living should be decreasing every year.
If you let's say if inflation was actually like in a perfect world where inflation was actually just 2%, and then like let's say everybody was making a was actually getting a 3 to 5% raise, and the S&P 500 was continuing to give you a 10% annual return. Do you think if the if inflation was actually 2%, that system would have kept going? Like, do you think it's because inflation is like way more than that and people cannot keep up anymore? Or do you think the
No,
compound? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
no, most people aren't able to invest in the stock market around the world. Most people don't have access to it. So regardless of what happens, there is going to be a group of people that loses. No matter what happens, if there's inflation, if there's more money being added to the economy without any effort, then there's going to be a group of people who loses. So people, let's say, who live in Africa, people who live in South America who save in dollars, they're going to lose no matter what, even if inflation is only 2%, right? So they're losing even though they don't get the benefit of, let's say, Americans, let's say Social Security. The US government is going to borrow money and add it to the economy to pay for Social Security. What they're doing is when they borrow money and add it to the economy, they're increasing the price of everything today because more people have access to money when they shouldn't. So more money is flooded into the economy, and then all these people who are saving in dollars, they're the ones who lose, even though they don't get any benefit from Social Security. So I don't think that's going to work at all. I think 2% inflation is still theft. It doesn't matter what the inflation rate is. 2% is still theft. If if somebody can create money out of nothing, you know for a fact that they're going to create more and then more and then more. They're going to keep going. We don't know what the Federal Reserve is rewarding themselves with. We don't know what kind of theft has been going on in the background. We have no idea. All this has to be considered. And this theft isn't from people who are buying the stock market. Most people don't have access to the stock market. This is theft from people who don't buy the stock market. And that's probably 95% of the world.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. Agreed. And I wanted to talk before I forget about that. As far as you mentioned, the deflationary environment. I've heard people say that, oh, if we go into deflation, it's gonna be bad for the economy because people are gonna save money. They won't want to want to buy things now because it's gonna be cheaper later on. Like, what do you have to say about that? Do you have a good argument against that one?
Yeah, absolutely. People are still going to have to buy food. It's not like they're going to want to not go on vacations. Are they going to go buy a box to live in so they can save? Right? Is that where the world is? I think that's a completely it just shows that whoever's saying that they haven't done the research, they haven't put in the time. And that's perfectly fine. Everybody starts from somewhere. But think of it logically. If you save in something and the value of it keeps going up, the value of the stock market keeps going up. Did people stop consuming? The value of real estate has gone up. Have people stopped consuming? No. It's going to keep happening. If anything, people are going to focus more of their money on the things that they need rather than the things that they want. Because now people can have money created out of nothing. So if somebody owns a house, they can go to a bank, they can have money created out of nothing, and they can buy, let's say, a sports car. So more resources from the economy goes towards building sports cars for rich people. And it completely destroys how we set incentives for what should be produced. When when we have when we have something that's sound money, it changes how we spend our money. So instead of buying a sports car, maybe we'll just buy a economy car or economical car. I guess. Economy,
Yeah.
like just
Something that's
this
gets the
basic.
job done. Yeah. Oh
Exactly,
yeah.
it just gets
Yep.
the job done. So you just buy something that gets the job done instead of wasting your resources on a car. Instead of trying to show people like your status,
Mhm.
you save your value and you dedicate it towards building more businesses.
Yep.
So
Yep.
let's say, for example, yourself, you started saving in Bitcoin.
Mhm.
How many nurses do you work with that are Bitcoin who have a podcast,
I mean, yeah, I
right?
can't even think of one of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the point that I'm trying to make is that Bitcoin has given you the incentive to create more value, to help more people. You found a problem, now you want to solve it. That's the point. That's what Bitcoin does. So to get people to accumulate more Bitcoin, they're going to create more value, they're going to add it to the economy. They're going to do the best work that they can because they know that the value in terms of Bitcoin of whatever they're selling is going to decrease over time. So we're going to see people bringing the best products to the market and the prices are going to come down because there's going to be more and more competition. For example, let's say you come up with this idea of actually, let's talk about something like, do you know about the core versus knots debate?
Yes, I've been following that. I'm not an expert into that, but I have been following that a lot. Yes.
So just high level, Bitcoin Core is trying to change the code in a certain the Bitcoin code in a certain way, and Bitcoin Knots is a new implement or not new, but it's an implementation of Bitcoin that gives you more freedom. So to do what you want to. So Bitcoin Core is trying to go. Uh, they're almost trying to control how you use Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Knots is trying to give you the freedom to use it how you want to. So because of a free market, Bitcoin Knots exists. If we had a fiat economy, then Bitcoin Core would have all of the wealth. They would have a monopoly over everything. They would control the entire Bitcoin landscape. They would control all of the software. Keep in mind, I'm not an expert on this topic. I'm not going to give you any guidance on what to do. There are other videos that are talking about this. But the point here is that Bitcoin allows you to it allows you to compete. If there was no Bitcoin, we wouldn't be able to compete because our savings would keep decreasing in value. Bitcoin increases in value, so you can save, you can hold on to that value, you can create more value, you can add it to the economy, so that in that deflation situation isn't even relevant. It doesn't matter. Prices will come down so much because people will want your Bitcoin that you'll be incentivized to give away your Bitcoin to enjoy your life. If you could get a, let's say for example, if you could get let's say the entire world wants Bitcoin and you could get a vacation for 0.0001 Bitcoin. You could go to like Paris or something and you could get a really great vacation for 0.0001 Bitcoin. That's worth like what, $100
Maybe.
today?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
100. If you could go somewhere for $100, wouldn't
Oh
you do
yeah, I
it?
would. Oh, I'll do it for
Right?
sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. So there's going to be more competition, more, let's say, airlines that are
Yep.
offering flights to those areas, meaning that your cost goes down. There's going to be more people who are willing to offer better amenities, more companies that are willing to find the the resources that you need to go on vacation. So it's just what I'm saying here is it's going to increase competition. It's going to bring more products to the market, and the price of everything is going to decrease forever. So
Hmm.
I don't think that's relevant.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. Also, when the this new thing that's been going on online a lot about if Bitcoin does not become a media of exchange, it will fail. How do you feel about that?
I don't agree.
Yeah.
I think
Why?
I think because people, I think that's I think becoming a medium of exchange is it's a byproduct of people using it as a store of value. So right now, people use it as a store of value. People use gold as a store of value. They use stocks as a store of value. They use real estate as a store of value. But all of those things keep increasing in value. The thing is that Bitcoin can actually be used as a medium of exchange, while all those other things can't. You can't use stocks as a medium of exchange. So I think if anything, if Bitcoin becomes a store of value, it's going to lead to this to the medium of exchange phase regardless. If it becomes a store of value, it just means that the price is going to keep going up. And let's say people who bought Bitcoin at $15,000, let's say the bottom of last bear market, if Bitcoin goes to $15 million, they're they're going to want to give away some of their Bitcoin to enjoy their lives, right? So it's I think most people aren't looking at it from that perspective. They're looking at it as Bitcoin doesn't have any utility, but the utility is that it can be used to store value for the future, and that value will eventually have to be spent. And the natural progression of Bitcoin, at least in my opinion, will be that people will want Bitcoin as a store of value. They'll want Bitcoin as a store of value, so they'll be willing to sell their goods and services for Bitcoin. And then the people who have enough Bitcoin are going to be willing to give away their Bitcoin for those goods and services.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I was thinking about the other day too, and I don't know about like their definition of fail because like ever since like I've started learning about Bitcoin, like this is literally the almost the healthiest I've ever been, the least stressed I've ever been, and the most financially educated I've ever been. So I'm like, what is your definition of failure exactly? Like, like I mean, even if let's say something happened, like it would be it would be easier for us Bitcoiners to like recognize the next currency, I guess. I mean, like because we'll be able to like differentiate between like something that's a scam now or another currency that doesn't have the all the properties of money basically. So I feel like in a way Bitcoin has already won because it has like already like educated us in so many different ways. But I don't know. That's just like my view on it, my take on it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's already so far ahead. Like if you look at the Bitcoin dominance, there are millions of other cryptocurrencies. I think something like 11 million other cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin is 65% of the market, right? So just making that connection there, I think that's so valuable because people will always ask you, "Oh, cheaper Bitcoin. I want cheaper Bitcoin." There is no cheaper Bitcoin. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. There's only one Bitcoin. You either buy the Bitcoin that you have, or you wait. That's it. You're anything else that you're doing, everything else is a distraction. If you buy real estate, you think that I'm going to use the cash flows to buy more Bitcoin. I've done a video telling you that it's not possible. You're gonna lose money if you buy real estate because you're putting a certain amount of capital into the property as a down payment. So let's say you buy $1 million house, put $200,000 down. Instead of buying that house, you could have bought two Bitcoin, right? So you lose out on that two Bitcoin. What's the opportunity cost there? You expect the house value to go up and you expect to get cash flows. Those cash flows are not going to get you to two Bitcoin,
Hmm.
guaranteed.
Yep. Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, a lot of nurses that I work with, I mean, they all want to get into real estate, and I'm just thinking like, I already know I've done my research. I know like you've read the book, the Hidden Cost of Money by
I've heard of it. I
Seb
don't think
Bundy.
I've read it.
Yeah,
No, I haven't read it. It's Sub Bunny. I have it
so
on my
yeah,
list.
yep, yeah. It's like I feel like somebody should write a book about the hidden cost of real estate because I feel like people don't think about like everything else that's like that you have to like pay for with real estate and like just
Yeah.
don't go into that trap. And there's also the argument of like, oh man, I can use leverage. Do you think leverage is worth it in real estate? Like, because a lot of people say, oh yeah, if I use leverage, I can make an extra 20% or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I've never been into real estate, but like, do you know anything about that? About leverage at
Even with the
all?
leverage,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's
Even
still
with the leverage, if you get 95% leverage, then of course you're taking a lot more risk as
yeah.
well,
Yeah.
right? But even with the leverage, there's so many. So actually, I have a spreadsheet here. Let me share the spreadsheet. I think this will
Mhm.
help
Yep.
to give people a better picture of what's going on. What I mean.
Yep.
So what we see here is you could either buy the median house or one Bitcoin. Let's say Bitcoin's price right now is 95,000. I updated this a while ago. So
Okay.
Bitcoin's price is 95,000.
Yep.
Median home price is $402,000,
Mhm.
meaning that let's say you put a 10% down payment, you'd be putting $40,200 into the house if you buy one house. Let's say you could buy two houses that are worth about $1 million. So you could buy, let's see here, two houses that are worth about 10 Bitcoin, so 5 Bitcoin each. If Bitcoin's price goes up, you still have the same amount of Bitcoin. You still have the same amount of Bitcoin, but the price of houses in terms of Bitcoin is going to decrease over time. It's going to keep decreasing until we have houses being sold for very, very low prices. I made a whole video about this. I actually went in depth into this. But even
Mhm.
if you take on leverage, it doesn't work out. Even if you take on leverage, I put in a compound annual growth rate for housing for at about 5%. So if you take on 90% leverage, your return is about 50% per year. But the
Yep.
thing is that you're still paying for the interest on your mortgage. You're still paying for property taxes. You're still paying for maintenance. You might have legal disputes that you have to pay for. You may have to pay for repairs. You need
Mhm.
to have a high yield savings account, so capital on the side in case something goes wrong. You need
Mhm.
to, you're going to try to earn cash flow, but it's possible that you could get ruined by all the risks that exist.
Yeah.
We have tenant risk, people who don't want to pay.
Yep.
There's always going to be people who don't want to pay. They want
Uh,
something for free.
Yep.
Why would you risk your property to give it to somebody if why would you risk your savings, sorry, give your savings to somebody else for the expectation that they're going to give you cash? What if they run away with your savings? In this case, what if your tenants destroy your property
Mhm.
and it doesn't work out for you? What if you
Yeah.
can't get a payout from insurance? What if your tenants run out of income or you don't have any income and you can't pay for your properties? A lot of people are taking losses on real estate right now. They're not
Mhm.
getting positive cash flow. So if they run out of income, their property goes to zero. What about vacancies? You need to find tenants. That's key. Market fluctuations. So the reason why people buy Bitcoin, or sorry, the reason why people buy real estate is because real estate is less volatile and you get the cash flow. But there are still
Mhm.
market fluctuations. If you ever need cash, you're going to find a lot of trouble if you want to borrow against your property and the value has gone down. The market has gone down. What if you lose your job? What if they lose their jobs? What if they damage your property? What if you have negative cash flows, squatters, liability claims, natural disasters? All of these are risks,
Sheesh. Oh my
right?
goodness. Yeah, that's crazy.
All of these are risks that you have to think about. People don't think
Yep.
about these risks. That's the thing.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
people don't think about the risks, so they make the wrong decisions.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's not that I was thinking about going into real estate, but phew, you already sold me, man. I'm good. Man.
It doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, it's not worth it at all. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I wanted to talk about 401ks for a second because I had somebody that asked me a question about that. So uh, I know a couple of years ago I was looking at my target date fund and I was comparing my like returns to the S&P 500, and then I almost cried because I was like, wow, this thing severely underperformed the S&P 500 because they invest in like bonds and all that. I mean, I have no idea what
Yeah,
else,
they
but like,
rebalance the bonds over
yeah.
time.
Oh yeah. So I mean, now I don't even have a 401k anymore. But like even with like the M2 money supply increasing at an average rate of about 7% per year now, is it are 401ks even worth it? I don't know, like with because it's just basically keeping up with inflation technically. Like, is that even like a valid investment anymore? Do you think?
The way yeah, the way that I see it, I don't think they're worth it anymore because your money is locked in for a very long time. So you don't even know if that future is going to happen. Then you underperform against inflation. A lot of these 401ks charge you massive fees. Your money is locked in. You have no choices. You have no freedom. You can't do anything with your money if unless you get permission. So it's basically just a trap for your money. It's a long-term trap. It's a 30, 40-year trap for your money. So it's up to you. If you think you're going to survive till 65 and you think that 7% returns are enough, then go for it. But if you understand that 7% returns are not enough because the inflation rate is like 5 to 7% at least, maybe higher than that, then it doesn't make any sense. Your 401k provider is going to take a ton of fees from your account. They're going to take a lot of value from your account and you're never going to be able to recover that. So these are things that you have to think about. Your If you're okay with locking your money away, If you're okay with not touching it for 40 years, not having the choice, there are people who have no money in their checking accounts, but they have their 401ks all the way filled. They're not enjoying their lives today, but they're rich in 65 years, in 40 years. What's the point of that? If you're miserable today, but you have a great big future for the future, what's the point? What if that future never comes? Why would you lock your money away intentionally? I think the point of 401ks is to get people to not spend today, to not make inflation worse. Because think about it, if people's money hadn't been locked away, then they'd be spending that money today, and inflation would be 10 times worse.
Yep. Yep. Oh yeah. And I was looking at I was doing some research on 401ks too, and I mean the average 401k for people 65 is like it was like less than 300k. And I mean, obviously that's not for everybody. That's just the average. But I'm like, damn, 300k. Like I mean, if you're 65, that I don't think that can last. I mean, I don't know what their lifestyles are gonna be like, but that will not last you a long time at all. Like most people will have to go back to work. Unfortunately, like it's not sustainable. Like I'm like, damn, it's not worth it at all.
Yeah, you'd like, let's say if your expenses are 60K, or like 50, let's say in retirement they drop to 50K. You have maybe 5 years. You're withdrawing, so you're with if you're actually, let's say your expenses are even 30K. You're withdrawing 10% of your portfolio, but you're only earning 7, 6, 5% some years. You're gonna last at most maybe 11, 12 years at most, at the very best. But in the worst case scenario, maybe you don't even last like 3, 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. It's sad. I'm like, oh man. Oh yeah. I hope that some people like learn from this so that they can like do something about it. Like they say, you can lead the horse to water, but you cannot force it to drink. So I'm hoping that some people, our podcast can actually, lead them to the water, and then they can take it from there.
Yeah.
Back to Bitcoin. I want to ask you. So, what for the new people out there that don't know where to start? What are some of the best like beginner friendly resources that you would suggest them to like start like reading, or like podcasts that they should listen to? What's usually your go-to?
Watch my videos.
I like
I
that.
think that's the easiest way.
Yeah,
Go to my
yeah.
channel, watch all my videos.
Yep,
I have
yep,
tons
yep.
of them. I think one of the issues with finance books is that people don't want to read them.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. It feels like a chore. It feels like a chore. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
exactly.
even for me, like I was like, at first I was like, I was not really a big reader. Like, so like I downloaded Audible, and honestly, thank God for Audible, because man, because like if anytime that I'm like doing the laundry, dishes, whatever, going on a run, man, I'm listening to something, and that has helped me a lot, to be honest with you. Yeah, but I agree. Yeah, yeah. And I also saw one of your recent videos about like you said that 1 Bitcoin equals an infinite amount of US dollar. I mean, obviously I understand why you say that, but like some people may think you are insane, like can you explain like why you think 1 Bitcoin is actually can be worth, it's basically there's no top to
Yeah.
Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always going to be more dollars created. There's no limit to the amount of dollars, but there is a limit to the amount of Bitcoin that can exist. So a lot of it has already been produced and it's already in the economy. It's already owned by people. Every Bitcoin that exists has to be owned by someone. So that Bitcoin is already owned by someone. You have to convince them to give it to you. But the people who own Bitcoin, they understand, well, at least some of them, they understand that US dollars can be created out of nothing while Bitcoin can't. So over time, we're going to see more and more dollars chasing Bitcoin forever. There's going to be less and less Bitcoin being created. There's a maximum of 21 million Bitcoin, and that's going to, the supply is going to decelerate until it reaches zero. It's going to decrease by 50% every 4 years until there's no more Bitcoin being produced. But the supply of dollars is going to increase forever. We're going to see more and more dollars being added to the economy until there are infinity dollars. So more dollars can chase Bitcoin forever, meaning that the price of Bitcoin can increase forever.
Yep. Do you believe in like the the like slow gradual growth, or do you believe in like more of an S curve type of growth where, in the next 5-10 years we will maybe get to like, I don't know, maybe 40-50% adoption rate real fast, and then after that it's gonna slow down? What do you think about that?
To be honest, I don't know. I feel like it's really difficult to predict what the growth is going to look like. I would I think I used to strongly believe that we're going to see that slowly then suddenly, the gradually then suddenly kind of growth. But now I think it's going to just happen over time. People aren't I think people aren't looking for a solution, right? They don't know what the problem is. They don't even know if the problem exists. So they're not looking for a solution, right? Maybe at some point people come across it in their lives, but I think it's going to happen slowly. I don't think it's going to happen all at once. I think that's going to be I think it's going to take some time, but I do think that governments and financial institutions and just businesses in general are going to adopt it, and they're going to push the price up. But I don't know. I don't know when the individuals are going to get it. I think it's going to take a really
Yeah.
long time for most of them.
I was I think I was talking to a few of other people about this too. Like if we go into like a some sort of like, Zimbabwe or Venezuela phase, maybe not as bad, but like where, people start to feel the pain, a stronger pain, maybe that will incentivize them to like look for a solution faster. But then again, who knows? And yeah, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. We can't predict any of that, unfortunately. I have a question here from my mother, actually. She asked, with all the uncertainty happening right now with like the tariffs and all that, how could a recession affect Bitcoin, actually?
I mean, in the short term, you might see a decrease in price. I actually think that Bitcoin is protection against an against a recession, because all the other assets, if there's a recession, if there's a bad enough recession, every other asset is not a bearer asset. So we have stocks that are not bearer assets. You rely on a custodian. That custodian, you rely on a brokerage. That brokerage relies on a custodian. If anything happens along that chain, then your assets are gone. So if a company goes bankrupt during a recession, then you're not going to be able to access your stocks, or something could happen that makes it so that it's not possible for you to access your stocks. People are going to uh, people are going to panic sell to get out of stocks to buy dollars. And I think what's going to happen in the short term is maybe Bitcoin is the first to drop, because people, it's just easy liquidity, it's easy access to cash. So you sell your Bitcoin, you get cash right away. But I think Bitcoin is going to recover, and then I don't think stocks are going to recover after a while. I think I think it's going to be very difficult for stocks to recover. So stocks will keep falling and falling during a recession. But I think Bitcoin is going to it's going to decouple from stocks if there is a recession, because Bitcoin is that bearer asset where you can take custody, you own it. It's not. Nobody knows that you have it. It's yours. Nobody can stop you from using it. So people are going to move to that rather than stocks. I don't know about real estate. I think real estate might come down in value, of course, because people don't have money to spend on real estate. The Federal Reserve will have to decrease interest rates. The Canadian the Central Bank of Canada will have to decrease interest rates to get people to start buying again. But if they don't, real estate prices are going to keep falling. And I don't think Bitcoin is going to be negatively affected by that, though. I think Bitcoin is going to go up in value, because if prices fall for real estate and stocks, the money has to go somewhere. Either there's going to be people who buy gold, people who buy just keep fiat currencies and hold on to them, and then they lose value, and then other people are going to buy Bitcoin. So Bitcoin will definitely benefit from it, I think, because it's separate from the system. So it doesn't really get impacted by recessions, because the current system is just built on nothing. It's built on a fake foundation. So the recession can bring the entire system down, but with Bitcoin completely separate from the system, completely apart from the system, so you can't. I think it's very difficult for Bitcoin to collapse, even if there is something like that happens.
Yep, yep, yep. And you mentioned self custody there. Um, so a lot of people, obviously, we're kind of getting used to like letting other institutions take care of our retirement plan. Why is self custody important?
It's because you get to control your money. You get to control your wealth. If you have your Bitcoin with, let's say, an exchange, That exchange dictates whether or not you can use your money. So let's say if you want to take self custody of your money and it's on an exchange, if you have a lot of money on the exchange, let's say all of your wealth is on the exchange. So let's say you have $500,000 all sitting in Bitcoin on the exchange. If you wanted to move it all to your own wallet, first of all, there's going to be limits. The exchange isn't going to let you withdraw all of it at once. So you don't get to control your money. It's not really yours because you don't get to control it. Secondly, the exchange could say no. They could say, we're not going to let you withdraw it. So it's not really your wealth. So if you have your Bitcoin on an exchange, what you have is you have an IOU. The exchange owns the private keys to that address where the Bitcoin is kept. They can take that Bitcoin and they can do whatever they want to. They can tell you that they have your Bitcoin, but maybe they don't. That's exactly what happened with FTX. So if you have your Bitcoin with an exchange, what you're doing is you're taking a risk. You're assuming that the exchange has Bitcoin, has your Bitcoin, and that they haven't lost it. So you're taking a massive risk. So what I mean by self custody is you take the Bitcoin from from the exchange's wallet and you put it in your own, a wallet that you have full control over. Move that Bitcoin away from the exchange, put it in your own self custody. That way you don't have to go through anybody to move your Bitcoin. You have full control of your wealth. You have full self sovereignty. You have full control of your ability to move the money wherever you want to.
Yep. And as far as like for the new people out there where like they're not comfortable going all in on Bitcoin, but like they don't know how to start. Like, what do you think is like a safe allocation for them if they want to retire? Let's say 10 to 20 years from now, like something that's kind of like, it's not like too dangerous where they're like, oh my god, I'm freaking out, I'm gonna lose all my money. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, okay. I have actually have a really great I have a spreadsheet that I want to share with you for that. So I have a compound
Yep.
interest calculator that I created,
Uh-huh.
and let me just get rid of all the ones that I don't think are relevant here. I
Yep.
just hide them. Let's say you put $100 into Bitcoin each month,
Mhm.
and oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm just gonna hide this. Why is it not letting me highlight? But whatever. Okay, hide that. Okay, so you have, let's say you put $100 into Bitcoin every single month.
Mhm.
$100 for some people is a lot of money. For other people, it's
Mhm.
very little money, right? If you put
Mhm.
$100 into Bitcoin every single month, and it gives you a 29% growth rate. I think 29% is reasonable. Michael Saylor came up with this number. My number would be a little bit higher. I just use this
Mhm.
because it's Michael Saylor's number. People trust him. They know who he is, all that. So if you put $100 into Bitcoin every single month and, oh, there it is, investments. This is the column that I needed.
Oh,
It
yep.
goes zero here. So if you put $100 into Bitcoin every single month, you'll have, let's see here, $183,000 by 2039.
Yep.
This is $100 every single month. You would have put in $12,000 after 10 years. So after 10 years, you'd have $62,000. After 20 years, you'd have $863,000. After 30 years, you'd have $11 million.
Yep.
So over time, if you just put $100 away every single month,
Mhm.
I think you can do pretty well. So
Yep.
this can definitely give you freedom at some point. Now, if we look at your expenses, your annual expenses, let's say you're spending $50,000, or sorry, let's say you're spending $5,000 a month, so $60,000 a year. Your annual expenses are $60,000 a year. Your expenses keep increasing by, let's say, 3% per year. Or sorry, your cost of living keeps increasing by 3% per year.
Mhm.
You keep getting raises, so you keep increasing the amount that you invest into Bitcoin by 2%
Mhm.
per year. So you keep increasing the amount that you invest. Your cost of living is $60,000 in the beginning. Eventually, your portfolio will cover your expenses. So we
Yep.
can see here, if your cost of living is $71,000, you would need, Bitcoin expenses are in this column here, you would need $16,000 or 0.16 Bitcoin, so 16 million Satoshis in order
Mhm.
to spend in 2031.
Yep.
So in 2031, you'd need 16 million Satoshis, $71,000. At that point, Bitcoin's price would be $447,000. So if we take a look at how long, let's say at that point, you keep buying $100 worth of Bitcoin, you'll only have 0.04 Bitcoin. So what you need to do is you need to find a point where you have enough Bitcoin that your expenses are covered forever. So let's
Yep.
say if you put $100 into Bitcoin every single month, you get to 5.5 million Satoshis. If you start spending in 2051, these are just random numbers that I'm looking at in the moment.
Mhm.
So we can see here, in total, if you retired for 100 years from 2051 onward, you'd only be spending 0.0088 Bitcoin. So
Okay.
you'd be spending 800,000 Satoshis,
Yeah.
900,000 Satoshis in retirement, and you'd have 5.5 million Satoshis in total.
Yep. Interesting. Very interesting. Oh wow. Okay. Okay. And of course, like I mean, I feel like it's gonna be a lot higher than the 29%. At least the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
my opinion,
I think so.
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, 29%. That's very low ball. I feel like.
Very conservative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. I like that one. Yeah. So obviously we've had like a lot of like different fiat currencies in the past, and like they've all failed. And I mean, I don't know when, but eventually I'm guessing the US dollar will be something in the past. Do you see I mean, then again, now I'm asking you to speculate again, but like, do you see a world where we just don't have a stock market anymore? Do you see a world where companies are denominated in satoshis? Like what do you? I mean, what do you see the future like with Bitcoin and people transacting in satoshis?
So I think there's two potential futures in this situation. I think number one, we could have a lot more small businesses and they take over the entire market. And there are no longer these massive publicly traded companies that take over the entire economy. That's one thing. The second thing could be that these companies get even more powerful because they have the cash flow to buy as much Bitcoin as they can. They buy everything and then they never go down. So they keep getting more and more powerful. So there's two routes, right? For the first route, we need to have people understanding what Bitcoin is. We need to have people learning about Bitcoin, spending their wealth, their savings on Bitcoin so that they can have Bitcoin before all these companies take all of it. I think that's key. If they don't do that, then they're not going to have enough Bitcoin to compete, right? So in that first scenario, I think the stock market could go I think it could collapse. I think a lot of companies are probably going to go to zero. Stocks are probably going to be valued in Bitcoin. You'll probably be able to sell your stock for Bitcoin. Let's say MicroStrategy. You may be able to sell your stock for Bitcoin. I think MicroStrategy is going to survive forever, but companies like let's say McDonald's, if they keep rejecting Bitcoin, Microsoft keep rejecting Bitcoin, eventually they won't be able to compete. I don't know how long that'll take, but eventually they won't be able to. So I think the companies that survive will still be valued in Bitcoin, but I also think there's going to be a lot more small businesses that will compete and they could potentially take down all these massive businesses, especially if they're not being efficient. Because the bigger you get, there are economies of scale, but then it's much more difficult to compete. It's much harder to roll out new products. So you can't create new products, meaning you can't grow. All you can do is you can buy other companies. That's valuable, of course, but what if somebody doesn't want to sell and that company becomes massive? That could hurt your company. I think that's key. So when you think of it from that perspective, it could go either way. I think a lot of big companies today are going to fail, but I think they're going to be replaced with other companies that are going to be built with Bitcoin as the foundation.
Yep, yep. We'll find out, I guess. We'll find out. I just have one last question for you that I always ask all my guests. If you could go back in time and give your younger self advice other than buying more Bitcoin, what would you tell yourself?
I think I would say to, I think I would start, I think I would tell myself to create content earlier
Okay. Yeah.
on YouTube, on
Yeah.
Twitter, on Instagram. I used to think that Instagram, Twitter are a waste of time.
Yeah.
Uh, but if you use them the right way, you can use them to make a lot of money.
Yep.
Even YouTube, a lot of
Yeah.
people a lot of people get educated on YouTube, but a lot of other people just waste their time. I used to
Yeah.
waste a lot of time on YouTube.
Yep. Yep.
If
Same
I could
here.
go back, I would tell
Mhm.
myself, start a business ASAP,
Mhm.
something with content creation, something where you don't have to sell a physical product,
Mhm.
because then you can market to every single person in the world. Every
Yep.
single person in the world can be your customer. So
Yep.
today with my YouTube channel, there are people who are watching my videos from random parts of the world.
Oh yeah.
Completely
Yep.
people from Africa, people
Yep.
from Asia,
Mhm.
people from Russia. Or
Yep.
no, not Russia. Sorry, I don't
Mm.
even know if Russia
Oh,
is available. But there are people from
yeah.
there are people from tons of
Yeah.
countries,
All over the world.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All
Yeah.
over the world. So
Yeah.
if I had a physical product, think about how much more difficult it would have been for me to sell that product to those people.
Yep.
The content that I'm posting is basically my knowledge. I'm monetizing my knowledge. But then again, if I go back in time and I did that, maybe I never would have come across Bitcoin,
True.
because
True.
it's
True.
that the butterfly effect, right? Everything
Yeah.
changes.
Yep.
Everything
Yep.
completely changes. So I don't know if I would
Yeah.
tell myself, I don't know if it would work out, but that's what I would
Mhm.
tell myself.
Oh yeah, oh, yeah. Because sometimes it maybe if you change something, you won't have like that need to know where
Yes.
you're benefiting from the system, and you like, oh, inflation is actually beneficial to me. I don't need to change anything. So yeah, you
Yeah,
you
exactly.
never
That's
know.
exactly
Yeah.
it. Maybe if I did that earlier, I wouldn't have come across Bitcoin.
Right, right, right. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, man. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you. Where can people find you?
I'm on YouTube. You
Yeah.
can just search for Rajat Soni
Yep.
on YouTube. You'll find me. Rajat Soni Finance is my YouTube the handle. I'm also on Twitter, Rajat Soni Finance, but the
Yep.
finance doesn't have an I, and it's
Okay.
verified. So you'll find me
Yep.
verified.
Oh yeah. I will put all those links in the descriptions, man. Thanks again for your time, man. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next one, man.
Absolutely.